Hello everyone, I got another video today about graphing trigonometric functions. Overall, I think it's interesting way graphing them, and there are many ways you can start graphing it. For like beginners, like I said, there's many ways you can graph them. One simple way is you draw a box, say this is your box right here. Alright. You say this right here is sine of theta. Right. And this right here is going to be your y value. Or actually, whatever value you're going to put it in, alright? Or x value. So, if sine of theta, or we start out at point 0, sine of theta equals 0. What is sine of theta? Sine of theta is obviously going to be 0, right? If you remember that, if you know the unit circle, this is a very helpful tool for you. Right. The next point we see over here, pi over 2. I know I see the other x-axis over here. I just want to start off on the positive side, make things more understandable. So pi over 2, we make a line, put pi over 2. What is sine of pi over 2? 1. If it's actually 1, the sine of pi over 2. Like I said, if you know your unit circle, this is just going to be an easy slide for you. So what is the sine of pi? Pi, you learn down to put pi. Sine of pi, we know it's sine of pi. If you think about it, sine is usually representing the y-axis, or actually the points on the y-axis. So, this is right here is 0 degrees or 360. Call it 2 pi. Here is going to be pi over 2, and here is pi. And here's 3 pi over 2. Okay, so what is it now that you understand that sine will actually have an existing value as a y-axis is going to have existing value at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. And obviously all the other places like 30 degrees or 45 degrees or 135 degrees. So this right here is very helpful if you also look at it, reference to it. So let's continue on saying, alright, sine of pi, you see here's pi, there's no way that you can find a y value for pi, so therefore we know that it's obviously point -1, 0, but -1 here is for the cosine and 0 is for the sine. So for pi here it's just 0. And then you continue on. What's the next point? We have 3 pi over 2. Next one we put down 3 pi over 2. Now what is the sine of 3 pi over 2? Here is 3 pi over 2. Here is obviously -1. Here's +1. Just clarify that. -1, alright, sine of pi, 3 pi over 2 is obviously -1. And then sine of 2 pi. Sine of 2 pi is over here, 0 degrees. It's all the same thing as pi, but the sine of it is the same thing as pi. So it's still going to be, draw 2 pi, it's going to be 0. So you realize you have, here's 1, here's number 2, and here's 3 zeros. And that's what you need to have for a sine function. So let's start, we plot this in right here, 0.00, pi over 2 and 1. Pi over 2, 1, point pi, 0, pi, 0, 0.3 pi over 2 and -1, it's 3 pi over 2, here's point -1, and here's 2 pi, 0. So there you go, there's the graph. Well, let me make sure you know. How does the graph of a sine function look like? That was messy, guys. I'm sorry. So disregard this right here. So that's how your graph of sine will look like, and you can continue on. You need to realize this right here is only for one period, because a lot of people make mistakes on quizzes and exams and tests saying that, okay, graph it only for one period, and then you go on, you continue graphing it like this. Keep on going and graphing, which is wrong. That's only one period you're going to understand is 2 pi. And that's what my next topic was going to talk about, is the period. Period. Really, it is a really simple thing if you think about it. You can always find the period of any trigonometric functions like sine of x. You find a period for sine of x. The sine of x period is what it means is that going around one whole cycle for 2 pi's. One period equals 2 pi. Sine of x is 2 pi. I mean, that's the period for sine of x. So, if you ever was faced with sine of x over 2, you have to understand that the period will obviously be 4 pi. Because your main goal in sine of x is to achieve 2 pi. Because, I mean, that's a whole cycle right there. So, your main goal is trying to get to 2 pi. Whatever it is, whatever it takes. Like, you have sine of x over 3. Therefore, you can know that the period, that's what's the most helpful thing if ever was to write, ever was to have a question that comes up, graph, for example, say graph y equals sine of x over 3. See, the period here will also be 6 pi. So, because, like I said, 6 pi divided by 3, what does that equal to? It obviously equals to 2 pi. So that's one important key point you need to understand. And I'm going to also talk about graphing it like that. Let me open up a new page. So if you was to have y equals sine of x over 3, for an example. First thing you want to know is that period log is equal to 6 pi. So your starting point, see, SP is going to be 0. Ending point, it will be 6 pi. Realize it's not actually 2 pi, because once you have the x over 3, then you need to understand that it's going to be, you got to try to make it equal to 2 pi. So now you come down to graph it, it's actually going to be the same sine function. It's just going to be stretched more along the x-axis. So make that bigger, x here. So you're going to still have the same vertical point, 0 be 1, negative 1. All the way over here, put 6 pi, to make it an even scale. Then 3 pi, then you have pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, and then you have those 3 pi, and then 9 pi over 2. So here you of course have a bigger scale in the x. You're gonna have a bigger graph. From our background knowledge, we know what is a sine of whatever x value is here. You just put it in over as x, and then you find what's the actual thing. Like for here, you have, well, let's see, sine of 0 right here is obviously gonna be 0. Sine of 3 pi over 2 over 3. Like, alright, sine of 3 pi over 2 over 3. You know that these two 3's cancel out, so therefore it equals to sine of pi over 2. So what's sine of pi over 2, guys? We already know it's going to be 1. So, okay. Now, sine of 3 pi, well, okay, that's representing 3 pi over 3. Therefore, these two cancel out, so it's equal to sine of pi. And then right here, so sine of pi, equals to 0. Sine of 9 pi over 2. Sine of 9 pi over 2 over 3. Now we know from division, we can say this goes with 1, this is 3, so sine of 3 pi over 2 equals to negative 1. So come down over here, let's put it over here. Sine of 6 pi, again, sine 6 pi over 2 equals to, I apologize, over 3, I'm sorry, which equals to 2 pi, sine of 2 pi, 0. So, that's wrapping up things again, is that the most important thing you have to realize is that when you're graphing, is always try to understand. Try to always write down the important stuff, such as like writing down your period, your starting point, and ending point. These are usually the most helpful tools for you. And if you ever get lost in trying to graph them, like I said earlier, try to make a table. Try to understand what's going on here. Try to like make it like a real graph, like y equals x, or y equals x, or y equals x squared. Try to make a table to understand what is it that you want to plot, or where you want to plot it. So guys, I guess hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. I'll be talking about the graphing of law of cosines and other trigonometric functions. Alright, so guys, see you in the next video.